I intend to just produce a brief film summarising details about what is known about the parents and ancestors of my father, uncles and aunts, rather than their life history. I leave that to their children. They are the children of Roland and Edith Heiway, née Dimond. Roland was the 13th child of James and Alice Heiway. This is the 1911 census. They lived at 30 Stanley Road, Heaton Moor, Stockport. He was a junior clerk at the time. He served in the RAMC during the First World War. He married Edith in 1920 at St Paul's Church, Heaton Moor, Manchester. At this time he was probably a travelling salesman for Town Talk Cleaning Systems. Jack was born in 1923, Margot in 1926, Michael in 1930 and David in 1933. Unfortunately, Roland died from an infection of streptococcal septicemia in 1934. It was rumoured that he was actually going to be offered a sort of management post in Town Talk Cleaning Systems. Edith was born in 1893. This is a photo of her aged about 8 with her sister Peggy aged 5. According to the 1911 census, they lived at 14 Shaw Road, Heaton Moor, Stockport, when she was 17. At the time, she was a telephone operator. Anyway, in 1934, after the death of Roland, she was a spinster aged 40 with 4 children aged 11, 8, 4 and less than a year old. At that time, my father accompanied his cousin Paul for an audition to Manchester Cathedral Choir. My father's name was mentioned in the choir school inspector's report for the year ending 1934, so he got in. It was here that the Reverend John Lloyd Milne was at first assistant choir master, but was promoted to head teacher in 1934. He saw Jack crying one day and visited Edith. Anyway, in a time with no benefits, he offered to take on the family. At first she refused, but she agreed in the end, and they married in 1935. Manchester Cathedral Choir was evacuated during the war to Cleveleys in 1939. However, according to Crockford's, the Reverend Milne was pastor of Quindon and Rickley between 1938 and 1940. They then went to Bletchley Park, where he was minister from 1940 to 1945. I've interviewed my Auntie Daphne, wife of David, to help me know more about the personalities of Edith and the Reverend Milne, as I only knew them up to the age of 10 or less. So here's a bit of a relevant interview for that period in time. You mentioned Grandma Milne. She worked for a period of time.
I don't know an awful lot about it, but I do know at some stage she took a job in a school, boarding school, as a house mother.
Right.
I've got a sort of feeling that it was one that Margot was at.
Oh yeah, okay.
But that is only what I vaguely remember.
Right, and this would have been probably in Manchester, you reckon, yeah?
I reckon it was around about there.
Yeah.
It would be before they came back down this way.
Because they went to Bletchley Park during the war.
Yes.
So if the war was...
40... Well, that
39.
ended in 45, so...
Yeah. So they got married in 35.
Yeah.
So in that 10-year slot...
Yeah.
Would have been a time...
She would have gone off and done things.
Right. And she did that sort of...
To help support the boys, but also to have a bit of her own time.
Right.
Because John Milne was a very intellectual man who spent an awful lot of time in his study.
Right.
With his books.
All the time. And he goes to the classics, isn't he? I think, at Oxford, yeah. Okay.
But they lived next door to Bletchley Park, where the
Enigma machine.
Enigma machine was. And in the book written about it, there's a little bit about 2 children getting in through the gates.
Oh yeah.
Or through the fence, a hole in the fence.
Yeah.
Well, that was David and Michael.
No.
It was.
Really?
Yes, they went through the fence and they came up against this guard with his gun, and he just told them to scram.
Oh really? Gosh. Alright, so we can get royalties from the film then?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's a shame. At a guess, this photo was taken in 1938. David was about 5 and Jack was 15. The Reverend Milne was paying for the boys to go to Monkton Combe School near Bath. I suspect that Margaret was going to a private school, but I don't know which one. And to confirm, right, I mean, basically when Roland Heighway died, yes, my father, Jack, was going to Manchester Cathedral Choir.
I don't know about that.
And he basically proposed to Edith, not through maybe a love match, but more sort of mutual.
Yeah. Granny Milne said to me that he was a good man, and he never ever complained at the amount of money that he had to pay for the boys' education. Right. He took on that responsibility.
Yeah.
And she saw him as a good man.
Right.
Difficult in a lot of ways. He was a difficult man.
Was he sort of a bit like a bachelor in terms of personality?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
He was well in his 40s when they got married.
Yeah.
And he had lived with a Batman. You know, he'd had his own Batman.
Right.
Who did whatever he wanted. And actually, when they first got married, they had a maid as well. Because I can remember David saying that the Batman always said, "Get out of here," and the maid said, "Come and have a cup of tea, darling."
Right.
But that, you know, he was very much the bachelor.
Right.
And he used to retreat to his study.
He's very educated, wasn't he?
Oh, extremely.
I mean, you told me about his sermons.
Only from hearsay.
Yeah.
That they found his sermons way above their heads, and way above half the congregation's heads. So, I don't think he was a man of the people. He was too
intellectual
for that.
Right. After Bletchley Park, they moved to Ovin and Pitchcott. My father was at Bath/Cambridge during this time. They then moved to Exeter in 1950. The Reverend Milne was based at St David's and St Michael's and was chaplain to the Royal Devon and Exeter Hospital. They then moved to Braunton Sands and lived in St Anne's Parsonage between 1951 and 1954. I suspect this photo of David was taken then, and he would be between 18 and 21. I seem to remember my father mentioning that they did afternoon teas. He also mentioned that he was the first to Malibu surf in the North Coast on a coffin-lid surfboard. My father recollects that the Reverend Milne perused the church chimes, and in all they moved 14 times, so I've missed a few. However, Edith seemed to like moving. There was a story of him taking an unhealthy interest in a young girl mentioned by Jack to Pam. However, let's now focus on Edith. And what sort of personality did she have?
Loving, caring, welcomed everybody, helped everybody.
Right.
And in the parish, even when after her husband had retired, she still had a place in everyone's hearts. So she went to the Women's Union, things like that.
Right. She was a guider like you, wasn't she?
She was. She was a divisional commissioner, I think, in Honiton.
Well, for how long was that?
I don't know how long, because she had finished by the time I came into guiding.
Right. I mean, did she do a lot of camping then?
Did I do camping?
Or her?
She did a lot when she was a guider.
Right.
Because she used to go away and take David and Michael with her.
Oh yeah, do you know where?
No, because this was long when they were young. Probably up round Bath way when they were living in... Actually, they went to school in Bath, but I think they were living near Bletchley.
Right.
Before the war.
Was she very she's very organised as a person, I presume?
Yes, very organised. Yes, she knew exactly what she was doing. She organised her home and everything. Because don't forget, by the time I knew her, she was in her late 60s.
Right, of course.
And knew exactly what she was doing. And when the day she died, she had a lady staying with her who was in her late 80s, because this lady had had an operation, and Granny was looking after her. She was caring for her.
Really?
That's the sort of person she was.
Cook, did she... What's the food? Do you remember any food she cooked?
Well, nothing in particular, but it was always lovely.
Was it? What, sweets or savoury?
Oh no, just nice, lovely lunches. And I used to go up on a Sunday.
Right.
When they lived at Kilmington, and we'd sit in the dining room and have a lovely meal and chat, you know.
Yeah, I only remember as a grandmother. How did she get on with her grandchildren?
She always had them around her. They gravitated to her because she was so welcoming. Whenever you appeared at the door, she'd be there with her arms open and gather them up and big kisses, you know. She really was a lovely lady.
And did she ever give you any advice?
Advice? She wouldn't do that. She would just listen to what I had to say. Because when I was a very young wife with a small baby, and I used to get very fed up being on my own, and I'd walk out of the house and I'd walk up to Kilmington and I'd go to her house and I'd moan and I'd groan and I'd tell her all about the terrible things that David had done, and she'd listen. And then she'd turn to me and she'd say, "Yes, dear, but we do love him, don't we?"
Brilliant. So humour. Did you have a good sense of humour?
Oh. Don't forget, you were going back 44 years. Yeah. I'm trying to remember things from a long time ago.
Right.
Can't remember her sense of humour as such, but that she was always a happy person. Right. Despite the way life had treated her, she was a happy person.
That's right, yeah. So sort of very even-tempered.
Yes, yes.
Right, lovely. Okay. The mother of Edith was Ada Eliza Dimond, née Fergusson. She was born in 1865 in Chorleyton, Manchester, and died in 1950 in Alderley Edge, Cheshire. She married Walter Charles Dimond, who was born in 1860 in Yeovil, and they married in the Register Office in 1895. He was a gardener and left her around about 1900. So she was left alone to bring up Elizabeth Marion, born in 1888, Mary Catherine, born in 1891, and Arthur, born in 1895, with obviously Edith. She worked most of her life in St Agnes's Church School in Manchester. This is a school diary with details of her appointment. On the 1st of November 1899, she was appointed to replace a Mrs. Gould, despite not being able to sit her final teacher exams due to illness. This is the inside of the school that was pulled down in 2008. She was known as Auntie Mother by the children. Jack went to a state school for about 1 year, probably in 1933, and hated it. So Auntie Mother taught him, Margaret and Paul, at her own home. She was particularly good at maths. Here's a view of the school motto, "Learn to do well." She had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Frederick Duncan, born in 1856 in Kenmore. Daniel Dewar, born in 1862, who immigrated to New Zealand. Mary Peel, born in 1863. And Clara Marion, born in 1867. They were all the children of Duncan Christie Fergusson and Catherine Dewar. Duncan was a founder of the Educational Institute of Scotland. I've inquired about this, and there were 12 original members with a Fergusson amongst them. He is believed to have entered Edinburgh University at age 16 and took a doctorate in divinity. He was also believed to have founded a school in Whalley Range, Manchester, but I haven't been able to confirm this. He was born in 1860 in Killin, Tayside, and this is us visiting Killin in 2001. He married Catherine Dewar, born in 1829 at Kenmore in 1854. The Dewar whiskey distillery isn't far, but I haven't linked the two. Back to the Heighways. This is John James and Alice Louise Heighway, née Wilmott. He was born in Wolverhampton in 1849 and she in Bilston, Birmingham in 1849. They were married in 1870 in Cannock Street Meeting House and had 13 children. The family history backwards and forwards from this time is another film or two. However, one of their children was Cecil, and he immigrated to Canada in 1911. He married Connie Rowton and had 2 children. Peggy is here with our children in 1997. She had 2 children, Lorraine and Ronald. Lorraine is here with her husband Ray Gisborne. They have 2 children, Trina and Trent, and Trina now has a little girl called Emma. Hopefully people can add to this so the Heighway story doesn't end here.